Hey buddy, so let's talk about a file dog today. Okay, now what is file dog? That is more interesting, right? So, a dog that will keep watching your file, your directory, that concept is called file dog, right? So, two words, one concept, file and dog, right? Now, when to use file dog? When you actually wanted to monitor this file. Okay, so let me give you the real life use case. Let's say you are working on a data migration project and your client or any user upload a file in a particular folder after some interval, maybe nightly, maybe monthly, or maybe after every 1 hour, or maybe after every 1 minute. And whenever there is a file upload, you want your software, your application to read that file from that particular folder, do some business logic, and then import into a database, right? That is what the migration is. Read from source and write into destination, right? That how you can achieve, right? This data migration reading from the file, how you can achieve that. One way, you can go for a cron jobs, right? That will keep hitting your file, that folder directory after every 1 minute or after every some interval that you specify, that if there is a file upload or not. And if there is any file pending, right, there is a file uploaded, you will extract that file and perform some business logic. Second, you can create some triggers, right? You can go for Azure, you can go for Power Automate, and you can create triggers, but you have to pay for that. But Microsoft has given us a class called FileSystemWatcher. You can use that class to implement this file dog system and do this data migration, or whenever there is a file upload, just read that file and you don't have to pay any single rupees, single dollar, right? Okay, now I already have that code, and what I will show you the same thing. So this is a folder that I have mentioned in my code. If client upload or if there is any file uploaded in this folder, my code should get triggered. Okay, so let me try to create one file, and let's say file has been uploaded, right? So I have uploaded the file. Now you see, as soon the file was uploaded, this my software, my solution has read that file, right? If you see, this is a file path, the file that I have created, right? And if I say now whatever, I can read the file, I can perform the business logic. Once my business logic done, I can move that file to a different folder. Okay, that is something called file dog. Now how to implement this without paying a single cost. Okay, so this is one class, right? What we will do, we will write another class exactly same but in detail. Right now, to implement file dog or file watcher, there are two ways. One is simple, that you see on my screen. Second, if I can go to my solution explorer, you will see there is something called with hosted service, right? So I can go for the other way as well. So I will explain both the way, and then you will decide what way you wanted to go. Okay, now what we will do, let me stop this, and we will create exact same file. So let's do one thing. Let's create a new file, and let's create a new file dog system. This time I will name it let's name it file dog. Okay, so this is my file dog. Let's create a one method called I wanted to watch, right? So I will create a one method called, let's say, void, and let's watch this, right? Okay, now we need to start implementing our file watcher. For that, I need a class called FileSystemWatcher, right? Create object here, and I will say FileSystemWatcher, perfect. And I have to put a path here, right? So what I will do, I will go to I wanted to make this a source, right? And let's delete the other file. Okay, now let's paste the path. Okay, this is a path. Now this is the first step, that you need a file system watcher class, and this is inbuilt. You don't have to implement any namespace, right? So this is something that Microsoft has given you a free. You don't need to pay anything. Okay, now what are the next step? This is just you have initialized the class and you have put the path. Now the next step is put a filter, right? So file system watcher dot there should be something called notify filters. Here you go, right? And notify filters means, you know, what kind of activity you wanted to track. For example, I wanted to track whenever there is a, you know, file has been created, right? Last write. Okay, the data, the file or folder last had anything written to it, right? At that time, I want that, you know, my file system should get activated and read that file. Or what are the different options? There are multiple, and you know, with this pipeline filter, you can add any other option. You see, Visual Studio is also suggesting pipeline symbol and then notify creation time. Okay, what else? Let's say pipeline symbol. We don't need everything, so I will say notify filter dot what else we have? We have if there is any change in the file name, right? So you see the name of the file. Okay, now directory name, that's fine. Let's say what else we have? Notify filter dot if there is a change in the size, you can do that as well. Or you know, whenever it was last access, right? So for all those things, you can go for, you know, notify filter. So it's on your requirement. Now this is just the first step. This is just a second step actually. First step was this, you know, file system watcher. Now second step. Now third step. What kind of file that you wanted to write? Let me, you know, write down here as well. So this is my step 1, right? This is my step 2 for better understanding, right? Now third step. What is my step 3? Okay. Now what kind of file you wanted to write? So all the properties that you need to set here. Okay. So I will say file system watcher dot, and you know what, let me see if what else I have. Let's say what file, what kind of, you know, format that I need to read. Is there a specific file name that you wanted to read, or you know, specific extension that you wanted to read? If you have a specific requirement, let's say, you know, the file name should be test.txt and only that file needs to read, then it will keep a track on that file only. But if you don't know, you know, what would be the file name, you can put a star, right? If you don't know the file name, but if you know the extension, put that extension. But if you don't know the extension, then again put star. Star means all that, you know, any file, any extension, right? So it's all up to you. What's your need? Okay, now step 1 is good, step 2 is good, step 3 is fine. And you know what, there is a one more step. So this should be my step 4, and before that there should be one more step. So let's call it step 3. What we need to write some events. So events are like, you know, the clicks, like delete, if you have, you know, performed a delete operation, if you have, you know, made some changes in the file, what you wanted to do, right? So this filter is just to notify you that there has been change. What kind of action you wanted to take on that change, that also you need to configure here. So just setting this alone filter won't help, because this is just for the notification, right? Now let me set all those events. So there are multiple events, and I will just go here and I will say file system watcher. Let's say I wanted to created event, right? And now for a created event, I have to, let's say what Microsoft was saying, and yeah, here you go, right? Not this one. So I have to assign a new event here, right? So what I need to do here now? So what I will do, let's go to the other class that I have, and let's just copy a created event, right? So this is my first event that I need to create. Okay, so that means, you know, whenever there is a file created, just go ahead and fire this event. Okay, now I have to pass this one, and see, this is happy, right? Okay, now what I will do here, let me run this application and see if it works. So what I have to do, program.class, right? And just disable this, right? I have to create an object, because this is not a static class, and new, come on, create an object with new file dog, right? And then call the method, and let's see if it works or not, or there is any issue in the implementation. So file dog, what was the method? I think method name was watch. Yes, okay. What the file folder structure? Okay, incoming, right? So let me put a breakpoint here. Okay, and I will do https, right? And let's see how it behaves. Application is running now, right? And what I will do, let's go to the folder and let's try to do the same thing, and let's see if our implementation is right or not. I don't see it is working. Okay, you know what? One thing. So this created alone will not work. There is one property that we have missed while setting the step 4. That is, let me set that. So I'm saying, okay, now activate this. So there should be something called enable rising events true. If you don't set this as a true, then you know your event fire will not work. So remember, this filter is just to notify. This method is for hit. But if this is not true, your method will not hit or it will not fire, right? So all these needs to be in the place. Okay, now let's see if it works or not. I have taken care of everything, but let's see, right? Looks like it is in running mode. I will go to the folder, right? Delete it, create a new folder. I want to create a text document. Here you go, right? It is working fine. I got the hit. Now I will read the file. I will perform some calculation, right? I'll extract the data, I will import into the database, and then I may, move that file. That all up to me, right? But I don't want to do those things now. So we are good with our watcher, right? These are the properties that you always need. Now, second, what kind of events you need, right? So this is the first event. Now you need more events, right? Let's go to my other file that we have already, which is FileWatcher, and we can copy, those events that we already have. Okay, so for my second event. So on change means whenever there is any change in the file, whether, whenever, let's say you open the file and do some content change, at that time that should get fired. Okay, now I will put a breakpoint later, but let's try to create all the events. Let's go to my FileWatcher, right? And this time I will copy everything all together, and then we can talk through, and that will save a lot of time for both of us. Okay, now the third event is on deleted. That means whenever you delete that file from a folder, you wanted your software to read at the same time and then do some business logic. Maybe you wanted to keep a log that this file has been deleted, right? This is for that purpose. And on rename, whenever there is a name change in the file, right? So at that time, what action you wanted to perform, right? Now you see, on created, on change, on deleted has same sort of parameters: sender, event, system, event argument, right? All the same. But when you go for rename, you have to go for rename event argument. The parameter will change, right? So this is different. Now there is something called on error. So this technically, it will work only whenever there is any kind of exception reading the file or copying the file. At that time, this will get fired, right? Okay, now let's do one thing. On created, we are good. We just saw. I will put a breakpoint on change. I will put a breakpoint on deleted. I will put a breakpoint on renamed, right? I'm not going to debug the error because we have to generate the error forcefully, right? So breakpoint is done, but we have to configure it, right? So let's copy, paste, and instead of created, let's say changed, right? And there should be this method, paste it, and instead of change, now there should be deleted, right? And there should be deleted method on deleted. Oh, come on deleted. And what else we have? Do we have rename, right? And there should be rename. Come on, renamed, right? And then there should be on renamed, right? Okay, now what else we have? We are left with only on error. So on error we may skip because we are not going to debug that, but let's see if error is there. Yes, error is there, right? Now we are good. Now what do we have to do? Let's run this application and see if all those events are getting fired or not, right? If this is done, that means we are done with our file watcher. A simple way, right? This is a simple implementation without any dependency injection. Okay, now let's see. I think we are done. Let's go to the folder structure. We have to create a file, right? Text document, yeah, that should get fired. Let me just remove breakpoint so I don't see the same breakpoint again. Okay, now change, right? So let me see for breakpoint. Yeah, I have a breakpoint. Open the file, change something and save. You see, you got the change, right? You have everything, whatever changes has been done, so you can track that, right, in what file, right? And you can whatever logic you wanted to perform, you can perform that. Okay, now change is fine. Let me remove the breakpoint from here. Let's try to delete, we will do later. Let's try to rename this. Now what I will do, rename, and let's say test. Here you go, we have the breakpoint. So in the E you have the old path and you have the new path, right? So your rename also work. Now we are left only with the delete, right? So I will go to here, I will try to delete this. Here you go, you have the delete as well, right? So that means all the events are fired. Now you know what the interesting thing, if I put my breakpoints on all places, right, all the method, just to show you the business logic, how it works. So what I talk, does that make sense or not? Let me just show you. Okay, so I said if you mark it false, then your events won't get fired. So just try to make it false, right, and see if that is the true statement or not, right? So I have run this application and now let's see how it behaves. Okay, so my application is in running mode. Let's go to file. Let's try to create a text document. Here you go, you don't have the breakpoint, right? Delete it, you don't have the breakpoints hitting, right? No breakpoints are hitting. So that means it needs to be true every time, right? Okay, so you are done with one way of implementing file watcher, file dog, right? So whenever there is a requirement to read the file as soon as it is uploaded in the folder, just go with this approach without paying any single money, right? Just you have to take care of file system watcher, you have to take care of the notify filter, you have to take care of events and make sure you are enabling the events, right? And then create those events, and that's it. And whatever logic you wanted to perform on those events, make that. Okay, now you know what, there is one more interesting thing. So notify filter, even if you don't specify anything in the notify filter, it will still work, right? Let me just show you. So I still have the breakpoint on. I will run it and then let me show you this detail as well. And you won't see, even on the Microsoft documentation that, this detail has been given, that if you don't enable the notify, if you don't write the notify filter, it will work or not, right? So let me create a new folder now and text document. Here you go. See, you still have those breakpoints hitting. Now, what's the benefit then? If it works anyhow, then why should I need to mention these filters? Okay, so no, if you don't mention this class file system watcher, still go for some default notify filter. For example, last write, right, creation time, there are 2 or 3 last access, so these 3 filters are by default enabled. So if your requirement is very straightforward, that if I only wanted to upload a file at that time, my file system read that file, then don't mention any filter if this is your requirement. But if your requirement more, let's say you wanted to specify if there is any change in the size, right, at that time also your event should get fired, then you have to mention those, right? Or if there is a change in anything in the attribute, you wanted to fire your you wanted to notify that events, you have to mention those. But if you simply want to do for a file upload, don't mention any notify filter and it will still work. Okay, now let's go for the other way. So this time I have already a class, so I can simply go and explain you that class. Okay, so now And I would recommend you should go for I-hosted service while implementing this file dog system, this file watcher system. Don't go for this simple, file dog without any I-hosted service. The reason is, when you implement I-hosted service, you are eligible for a dependency injection hosted service, right? Now, hosted service, when you wanted to go for hosted service, simply means, if you think that there is no human interaction, that my application is not going to use anywhere on the browser, or anywhere any person is going to hit my API endpoint, you don't need to go for add scoped, add singleton, add transient, those dependency injection. Whenever I host this application, IS server or any other server, I want my those services to work in the background without any human interaction, go for I-hosted service. And this file dog system, you don't need to go for any human interaction. It needs to work without human interaction in the background, right? So go for I-hosted service, right? So what I've done here, a simple class, you can create a file dog class here as well, right? Go for I-hosted service and I-disposable. I-hosted service make you enable for these methods, start async and then stop async, right? And I-disposable take care of your memory cleanup, right, at the very last. Now what we have done, so in the start async, right, I have this method called do work, right? All the properties that I need to mention, that was this one, this watch system, I can mention here, right? And in the start async, I have called that, and that's it, right? Now, so if I minimize this, in the stop, I just need to disable that enable rising event. So whenever the service is stopped, I want those system should get cleaned up, right? And for that method, I have this stop async. So I just disable those events fired, and that's it, right? Now, this is the same on change event. On the dispose, again, I wanted to clean up my memory, right? Whatever the object is there, I just want to dispose those. So at that time, it will automatically get fired, right? And that's it. Yeah, for sure you have to, enable this. You have to mention this one, right? So what I've done here, I have one constructor and I initialize that object, I have passed that file path and created an object. And one more thing, you are done with the implementation, but how to register that? So if you go to program class, right, over here, what you need to do, just this simple line, builder.service add hosted service, and then put your class name, and you are done. Add hosted service only eligible if you have this interface implemented. If you don't have, then you won't be able to register it as a hosted service, and you are done. Okay guys, if you really like this content, please don't forget to subscribe the channel, because that really boosts me to make more content. Okay, that's all for today's video. I will see you in the next video with some interesting concepts.